Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, the AP Top 25 poll in college basketball is out for Week 8, and I'm going to go over the top 25 rankings and see what I think about them. Purdue is the number one team, and they beat New Orleans this past week, and they've been very dominant this season. They've had a couple of close calls, but they're 12-0, and they're undefeated, and they definitely deserve to be the number one team. UConn's at number 2. They're 13-0, and they beat Georgetown this past week. You can make an argument for UConn to be the number one team. They've maybe even been more dominant than Purdue so far, but since Purdue has been ahead of them, Purdue should be the number one team for now. But UConn, I definitely can see the argument for them. If they keep winning, they will definitely become the number one team, and they are closing in on Purdue as we speak. Houston is number 3, and they beat McNeese State last week, and Houston only has one loss, but they've played very well this season. If they keep winning, they can definitely move up if Purdue and UConn lose. Kansas is number 4. They beat Harvard this past week. Kansas only has one loss, but they've been very dominant this season, and they definitely deserve to be in the top 5. Arizona's at number 5, and they've been very dominant as well. They only have one loss, and they beat Montana State and Morgan State this past week. And these 5 teams have been the most dominant team so far this season. Texas is at number 6. They beat Louisiana Lafayette this past week. They only have one loss, but with Chris Beard out, they've struggled a little bit, but they're still playing very well, and they are definitely the only team that can make an argument to be in the top 5. Tennessee's at number 7. They beat Austin Peay this past week. They have 2 losses. And Tennessee's played very well this season, and Rick Barnes definitely has his team playing at a top 10 level. Alabama's at number 8. They beat Jackson State this past week. Nate Oates has Alabama playing very good basketball right now. They only have 2 losses, and if they keep winning, they'll definitely move up. Arkansas is at number 9. They beat UNC Asheville this past week, and Arkansas only has one loss, but they don't have as good of a resume as some of the teams that are ahead of them. But if they keep winning, they'll move up. Gonzaga is at number 10, and even though they have 3 losses, they have a pretty good resume, and they also started out the season so high. That's why they haven't moved down too far. They beat Montana this past week as well. And Gonzaga, if they keep playing well, can move up as well. UCLA is at number 11. They beat UC Davis this past week. They have 2 losses. They've had a very solid start to the season. Mick Cronin has his team playing really solid basketball, and UCLA is definitely a top 15 caliber team. Baylor's at number 12. They're 9-2. They beat Northwestern State this past week. Scott Drew has Baylor playing great basketball. They maybe are not as good as they've been the past few seasons, but they still have a really solid team. If they keep playing well, they can definitely move up. Virginia's at number 13. They dropped 7 spots for losing at Miami. That was a tough, close loss. Miami's a much improved team, and that was a very tough loss for Virginia, but Virginia is still a top 15 caliber team until proven otherwise. Miami enters the top 15. They're 12-1. They don't really have that resume defining win until now that they finally beaten Virginia. Miami's playing really solid basketball, and they could definitely be a factor in the ACC if they keep winning. Wisconsin's number 15. They did not play a game this past week because their game against Grambling State was canceled due to bad weather. Prayers for everybody out there that had to deal with bad weather this past week. But Wisconsin's playing very solid basketball so far this season. They only have 2 losses, and they've definitely like one of the better Big Ten teams so far this season. Indiana's at number 16. They beat Elon and Kennesaw State this past week. Indiana's been a very solid team so far this season. Mike Woodson has Indiana playing really good basketball. Injuries have hampered their season so far, but if Indiana can get healthy, I definitely think they could be one of the better Big Ten teams this season. Duke's at number 17. They lost at Wake Forest this past week. They have 3 losses now, but in that Wake Forest game, 2 of their star freshmen were out hurt, so that definitely hurt Duke in this game. But Duke's a really solid team still, and they're definitely a top 20 team. If they keep playing well, they can definitely move back up. TCU's at number 18. They only have 1 bad loss to Northwestern State so far this season, and they did beat Utah on a neutral site, and TCU's been playing better basketball lately, and Jamie Dixon has the Horned Frog playing great basketball after a slow start to the season. Kentucky's at number 19. They beat Florida A&M this past week. They're 8-3 so far this season. Kentucky's really struggled. They do have a win over Michigan, but not much else. They've struggled against all the better opponents that they played so far this season, but I still think Kentucky's a solid team this year. Auburn's at number 20. They're 10-2 this season, and they beat Washington on the road this past week. That was a decent win, even though Washington is really struggling. But Auburn, they've suffered some lumps to start this season. They had a few bad performances, but Auburn's still a top 25 caliber team right now. And if they keep winning once SEC play starts, Auburn can definitely move back up in these rankings. Mississippi State's at number 21. They finally lost their first game of the season to Drake on a neutral site. Mississippi State only has 1 loss. I don't know how good Mississippi State is right now. They've had a lot of good performances to start this season, but their resume isn't the greatest. And once SEC play starts, we're really going to know if Mississippi State's a top 25 caliber team right now. But at this point, you have to have them in the top 25. Xavier's at number 22. And they beat Seton Hall this past week. Xavier's won 6 games in a row. Xavier only has losses to Indiana, Gonzaga, and Duke. And Xavier's definitely like a solid team this season. And the rankings are definitely starting to reflect that with them being now entering the top 25. New Mexico also enters the top 25. They're 12-0, and they're at number 22 as well, tied with Xavier. And Rick Pitino's son, he's got New Mexico playing great basketball right now. They beat Prairie View A&M this past week. And if New Mexico can keep winning in the Mountain West, they can definitely move up. West Virginia is at number 24. Bob Huggins has his team playing good basketball so far this season. They're 10-2, and they beat Stony Brook this past week. And if West Virginia keeps playing well in the Big 12, they could maybe be a factor in the conference and move up in the top 25. And North Carolina is our number 25 team again. They re-enter the top 25. They're 9-4. Hubert Davis's team has struggled out of the gate. They've had a lot of poor performances this season. But North Carolina seems to be starting to figure some things out. They've beaten Ohio State and Michigan the last 2 weeks, and North Carolina's starting to play better basketball. And if they start playing better in the ACC, they can definitely start moving way up in the top 25. In Illinois, Virginia Tech, Marquette, and Arizona State all dropped out of the top 25 for losing games this past week. And in the other receiving votes, you've got Charleston, Maryland, Memphis, Illinois, Ohio State, Virginia Tech, Missouri, San Diego State, Iowa State, Marquette, Texas Tech, Michigan State, Providence, Kansas State, USC, and San Francisco. All these teams can move into the top 25 if they keep winning or start to win. And all these teams are solid. They're just on the outside of the top 25 right now. So that's the Week 8 AP Top 25 poll in college basketball. Things are really starting to shake out. Teams are really starting to show whether they are top 25 caliber teams or not. But now that conference play is going to be beginning for all these teams, we're really going to know which teams are top 25 caliber and which teams are not. So it's really going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Comment down below what you think about the Week 8 AP Top 25 poll in college basketball and whether you think the AP voters rank the teams correctly or not. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below, and I will see you next time.